Okay, I think we can start. Welcome, good morning. We are very surprised to see so many people here. Very, very nice. We didn't expect this when we started this about, 5 months ago or something. Okay, so welcome to the tutorial Understanding Large Language Model Generated Translation. And we want to propose a translation Turing test that Alan Melby suggested 13 years ago in 2012. And now it was time to put this into some more realistic environment with ChatGPT and so on. So we suggest that you look into this detailed program. I will hand out in a moment a little reduced program, but a detailed program is on that webpage where you can also register for that TTT list. And if you're interested in following up on these issues here. Okay, so we're a team here of 5 people. There were also some more people, these project managers that you will get to know in a while. And Masaru Yamada was not on the original program, but he was extremely helpful with the ChatGPT agent. Thank you very much, Masaru, for joining this. He is remote, so we have a hybrid meeting here. Masaru is in Japan. It was too far for him to come. And Longhui is in the US. And with this new kind of uncertain policy in the United States, Longhui did not try to risk not to come back. So she will join us from remote. Okay, so the overview, I should go to this thing here, I guess. So here is a very condensed program. We devised this into 4 sessions. Oh, actually, I did not verify whether the break is actually correct. I just assumed that this is the case. Is that correct? There should be a 30-minute break. Yes? Okay, so we guessed correctly. So we will have 2 slots of 1.5 hours with a break of half an hour in between. And each of these 1.5 hours sessions will be separated into 2 sessions so that we have 4 sessions. In the first session, Alan Melby will mainly talk about what the translation Turing test is about. He will talk about the MQM and some other issues that are in that environment. And then also Masaru will talk about his ChatGPT agent, and Brandon about the setup of an experiment that we did. Then in session 2, we have participatory involvement. So this tutorial very much asks you to participate in the translation Turing test. You're so to say the judges of the Turing test. And this is separated in 2 rounds. The first round is a requester-provider negotiation, and you will see some documents, and you are supposed to judge then and fill a questionnaire. Then we will talk after the break in session 3, general introduction to MQM and quality estimation and how we evaluated the translations that we got from this Turing test. And in session 4, then, there's a second negotiation round where a client complains or has some objections towards the translations that were produced. And there's a renegotiation with the project manager. And I hope by the time we will arrive there, you will be much more understanding what we are trying to do here. And there too, you're asked to fill a questionnaire, and we will then evaluate this and evaluate the whole translation Turing test and see and discuss and see what you think about it. Okay, with this, I give over to Alan, who will take over the first session, talk about this stuff here. Afficher, plein écran. Voilà.
Welcome. First of all, sound check. How is the sound in the room? If you can hear me, can you understand me? Yes, good. So Over the next half hour, I'll be presenting a very abbreviated version of the translation Turing test based on some slides that I updated a few days ago, which I presented in 2019 at the Aptiv conference, Asia Pacific Translation and Interpreting Forum, which were in turn based on the original presentation about the translation Turing test, which was in 2012, my presidential lecture at the Linguistic Association of Canada and the United States. So why a translation Turing test? First of all, because the classic translation Turing test, at least I felt, already back in 2011 when I was working on this concept, was too easy, too general, too vague. So some people think that the classic Turing test, just a conversation between a human and someone or something on the other side, and then you guess which it is, just a short, general conversation. Some people think it has been passed already. Some people don't. Doesn't matter. It was too easy. Now, the second reason was discussions I had over a period of a number of years about the question of understanding, natural language understanding. Does a translator or a translation system need to understand the source text? You would think this is not controversial, but it's highly controversial. Even within translation students. I addressed, a number of years ago, I addressed a class of PhD students in translation. I won't tell you where, or you might guess whose students they were. But I asked the question, do you need to fully understand the source text in order to translate properly? And I expected a, of course, Professor Melby. Instead, I got, well, not really. You don't really need to understand it. And that was about a time when several of us were taken aback by this, and we predicted that translators the only translators, this is way back now, many years ago, the only translators who would be replaced by machines are those who translate like machines. That's one of my better known quotes. And Arl Lamel, my colleague, said something like that, something similar like that. Well, the debate about understanding and what constitutes understanding of language, I think, has become more contentious over the last 10 years rather than less contentious. It's a philosophical question, and I don't see us in the whole translation community, academic, commercial, NGO, coming to a consensus on this. So I thought, we need a test which does not depend on a consensus regarding the definition of understanding, something more practical. And that's how I devised the translation Turing test. Now, in 2012, nobody thought it was time to try it out because it involved, among other things, a translation service provider where the requester, often called the client, talks with the provider in natural language and describes the project and interacts. Well, that wasn't at all feasible back then, and it didn't look like it was very close. It didn't even look very close in 2019, but as we all know, things have accelerated. And now in 2025, it's for the first time, I believe, reasonable to try the translation Turing test. But let me go through this slide deck. The original paper, by the way, is available. If anybody wants to go to the website where everything about this tutorial is stored and it will evolve, it's all you need to do is go to ttt.org, translationturingtest.org. Would somebody try it? Let me know it's working. Now, before I forget, would really like to keep in touch with you, but you must opt in to the mailing list. We're using a commercial system called Constant Contact. Some of you may have worked with it. And you click the button there, join the mailing list, if you choose to, and then you'll be on the mailing list and we'll send you further information as these things evolve. It has each time you get a message, you can unsubscribe or not, but if you unsubscribe, you won't get any more messages, so don't worry about that. So please, give it a try and join. Put in your name and your email address. We'd love to stay in touch with you. Now, I neglected to ask how to advance the slides. Down here. No, there. Over here?
Yes. I guess. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. So keep in mind that this presentation, I decided not to localize the presentation to Switzerland. I wanted to give it a little bit of an exotic flair. So I kept the localization for South Korea. And this is an actual royalty-free photograph of a famous bell. And the presentation then was which bells does machine translation need to ring in order to be more like human translation? And I actually had a bell, and I rang the bell at each point. And that worked in the Korean culture, but I don't think it would work quite as well today, so I didn't bring my bell, but you'll have to think about that. So this is the famous, has anyone ever visited this famous bell in Korea? Okay, the bells that automatic translation will have to ring to be like human translation. Also, it's important for you to know which hat I'm wearing today. Yes, I have a PhD in computational linguistics. Yes, I helped start a machine translation project a few years ago in 1970. Obviously a rule-based machine translation system. Yes, I am an emeritus professor of linguistics, but I'm wearing the hat of FIT, the International Federation of Translators, and I'm representing the interests, and this is not the case for all my colleagues here, the rest of them. They each have their own hat, and we share this project, this tutorial on the translation Turing test. But I am formerly a vice president of FIT. I'm currently the chair of the North American region of FIT. I'm also the chair of the FIT Standards Committee. So I, by choice, want to represent or defend the honor of professional human translators. So don't be surprised if you detect a little bit of bias, and you're welcome to push back. By the way, I decided, what should I put after my name? PhD? Nah, that's easy. Everybody has a PhD. What should I put? CT. What does that stand for? Certified Translator. That's the mark that is used by the American Translators Association for those who pass the exam. So what is the next section going to be? Well, this is abstract art, right? So it's the abstract. So everybody knows about the 3 generations. I'm sure, unless you're very young, you know about the 3 generations that I have lived through. rule-based machine translation, phrase-based statistical machine translation, and neural machine translation, which provides, as we know, but the world does not know, provide the transformer techniques, provide the basis for large language models. We've been doing this way before ChatGPT. But don't pick a fight with Sam Altman about that. Let's just let them do their thing, and we'll do ours. Well, not really. I'll tell you why. We need to work with them. Okay, claims of parity. Parity meaning machine translation is just as good as human translation. So let's look at some of those claims. Who is this? Anybody recognize him? New York Times bestseller author, New York Times book. No? 2016, Alec Ross. Simon & Schuster, reputable publisher, claimed in that book that the human translator, the profession, my profession, and some of you, I know I greeted a few of you who came in early, some of you are also professional translators. The profession will disappear by 2026, just around the corner. And he explains that the reason is it's all about data. That's all. We just need more data. This is what he said in 2016. Some people still believe that. Scaling large language models. But in the last 6 months, I've seen a lot of articles with some pushback on that they've reached the limit. And just putting in more data is not necessarily going to make them better, but we'll see. Then 2 years later, the famous Microsoft statement. We find that our latest neural machine translation system has reached a new state of the art, and that the translation quality is at human parity when compared to professional human translators. That generated a lot of pushback, as most of you know, and some quite competent people did further experiments and pushed back on that claim. For one thing, it was about individual sentences out of context. And for those of you who know much about my background, my mentor was Eldon Lytle, may he rest in peace, was one of the people who was oppressed by Noam Chomsky. And in generative linguistics, Chomskyan linguistics, he talks about generation of sentences in isolation. And it's only relevant in what I coined this, the utterly boring world of individual UBW, utterly boring world of individual sentences out of context. So many people dismissed the Microsoft claim because it wasn't relevant to commercial, real-life translation. So obviously there's a lot of background where people assume they know what translation quality is. So I thought, well, maybe we'll define it in a way that's compatible with ISO 9000, which is recognized by quality managers worldwide across disciplines as the primary way of defining quality, meeting requirements expressed as specifications. So here's the definition. A quality translation demonstrates correspondence and fluency, two properties, required for the audience and purpose of the translation, and complies with all other specifications negotiated between the requester and the provider, taking into account requester and end user needs. Not just what the requester wants, because ultimately they've got to take into account the end user, the person who's going to read the translation. This is my definition of translation quality based on ISO 9000. So correspondence is about comparing source and target texts, and it includes both accuracy for general language and fluency, pardon me, terminology, not fluency, accuracy and terminology. So the domain-specific aspects of a text, you have terminology. For the non-domain specific aspects, you have general language. For general language, we talk about the accuracy of the translation. For terminology or domain-specific aspects, we talk about the terminology database or the concept system. And those two together, accuracy and terminology, form what we call correspondence between source and target. Fluency is just about the target text. Does it read well? Whether or not it's a translation, without looking back for correspondence with the source. Is it readable? Is it even grammatical? So, specifications. This is another aspect of the definition. Specifications should be based on standardized translation parameters or factors. Now, by the way, these slides that I'm going over now will be available on ttt.org for you to download and comment on. We now have two international standards that describe translation parameters. The ASTM International Standard, F2575, and the ISO standard, 11669. They were not developed independently. Some of the same people have been involved since the very first version of these parameters, which was in the year 2001. And they've evolved, but they have been rather stable. They've been much more stable than the world economy and world politics, these translation parameters. So who are the stakeholders? The requester, the provider, and the end user. Some people say, well, it should be client and provider. But before there's a relationship, a business relationship, it's just the requester trying to decide who is going to provide the translation. So that's why we use the term requester. An end user, in the context of the wide world, outside the translation community, but people who don't necessarily request the translation, but they're end users, but they consume the text, which is a translation. We started in November 2021. We started calling these people consumers. Just like they consume food, they consume other products, and they consume text translations. So, a professionally verified translation is fluent in the sense we just described. It reads well, independently of whether it's a translation. It corresponds appropriately to the source text. There's no absolute definition of correspondence. It's relative to the specifications. Those of you who are in translation studies know about functionalism, or way back to before some of you were born, Vermeer and Rice, when the roots of functionalism, this is where translation studies and commercial translation intersect very well, in my opinion. It has to be an appropriate correspondence, whether it's source-oriented, target-oriented. And a lot of other labels for that, depending on your favorite translation scholar. In the age of machine translation today, most translation that is produced and used on a given day is raw, automatic translation. Just a few weeks ago, after a presentation by an attorney who was talking about the European Union AI Act, I resolved in my mind how to bridge traditional machine translation. Now, traditional machine translation is neural machine translation, and ChatGPT prompted translation, because people were saying, oh, machine translation and Gen AI. But it's essentially the same technology. So I thought, how can we find a cover term? And this attorney came up with it. Automatic translation, which covers neural machine translation, Gen AI translation, and whatever comes next, as long as it's automatic. I think it worked very well. I've adopted it. So it should be labeled as, raw automatic translation should be labeled as AI translation or whatever. And in addition, this is the compromise. We'll have a discussion with one of my colleagues here in the audience, how we resolve that debate. This is the resolution of that question at AMTA. 2 labels on some translations. So you've got, on the one side, you've got professionally verified translation, where a professional human translator has either produced it, revised it, as in a senior translator revising the work of another translator, or edited it, as in post-edited machine translation, but taking responsibility for the result, for correspondence and fluency according to the specifications. That's the one label, professionally verified translation. Then you've got everything else, and that's unverified translation. But that includes 2 subcategories. That includes raw automatic translation, but also non-professional human translation. That is what has evolved just in the last couple of years. That now demonstrably, the output, the translation output of a non-professional who does not do well on the American Translators Association certification exam is not clearly superior anymore to raw automatic translation. But professionally verified translation is clearly superior to raw automatic translation. So, oh yes, only a few minutes. I've got to hurry up. Okay. So here we have raw automatic translation, and one of my favorite professional translators, Joost Zetsche. And so we've got the spectrum, which is pretty much covered already by what I went over, between raw automatic translation, which we will call raw MT, and full and human translation. So, the question that I raised a few minutes ago: how well do you need to understand the source text in order to produce a quality translation outside of a narrow domain? That's maybe the exception, where you don't really need to fully understand, you know, the old Meteo weather bulletins, right? Where the machine can do a really good job because it's such a narrow, restricted domain, controlled language. But outside of that, does the machine translation system need to understand the source text? Morse code does an excellent job of converting text to code. It doesn't need to understand. Does machine translation need to understand? Think about this. This is central to what we're doing today. Well, facts. To learn a language, a human requires comprehensible input. Krashen is the major scholar here. If you don't know Krashen, I won't try to explain the whole literature and language acquisition in a couple seconds. Language acquisition experts do not debate whether comprehensible input is required, just the degree, how much is sufficiently comprehensible. And a third fact, machine translation these days is entirely dependent on human translation, regurgitated human translation. Sorry to be so gross. So, the question, do machines understand what they're translating? Not relevant today. What's relevant is how we can test in a practical way that does not require a definition of understanding, and that is the translation Turing test. So, this is what we'll be talking about the rest of the tutorial here. I'll give you just the briefest overview, and then we'll go into much more detail. First of all, translation quality is defined in two international standards in a practical way. The one that was just recently published, ISO 5060, and then the ASTM standard, not quite published yet. It's work item 46396. And I'd be glad to talk with you more about that if you're interested. So, the three bells. Task 1. Each translation service provider delivers a translation that takes into account a given set of specifications conformant with this international standard. Interactively develop specifications. And then you've got two providers. Like in the Turing test, you've got a human on one side of the curtain, and then you've got either a machine or a human on the other side of the curtain. Here, you've got a requester on one side of the curtain, and either a hybrid, there's no more fully human language service provider. They almost don't exist anymore. Either a hybrid system where they can use CAT tools, terminology lookup, consult machine translation, translation memory, the whole shebang. On the one hand, a hybrid system, human plus machine, or machine only, where even the project manager is a machine. No human interaction at all. You talk with the project manager, who is a machine. The project manager gives the translation to another machine or to itself, comes back, interacts with the requester. No human whatsoever. And you have to decide whether it's hybrid or all machine, automatic, fully automatic. The second bell involves correcting errors. This is how it works in the commercial world. You request a translation, you get it back, you consult your experts in your company, and they say, hey, we don't like this translation. Go back to the provider and complain. And then there's another interaction in natural language. And you have to see how the provider is going to react. Defensive, arrogant, helpful? Do they actually agree to fix the errors, or do they say, no, it's not an error because? Task 2. There it is. That's task 2 I just described. Accept the evaluation and produce a corrected translation, or debate with the evaluator. No, my translation was perfect, and here's why. The third bell is to produce an alternative translation based on alternative specifications, where the requester says, I've changed my mind, or I'd like an additional translation with another set of specifications. Anthony Pym, one of my favorite translation scholars, says real translation competence is to be able to take a source text and produce multiple translations, each appropriate to a set of specifications. Given the same source text, different specs, produce an alternative translation. So, in summary, translate according to specifications that are interactively developed, respond to a quality evaluation, and adjust when the specifications change. Now, here's the questions for you. I've got just a couple minutes left. I'm not going to try to answer these. This is for it to roll around in your mind the rest of the morning. So, has it happened? Has a machine in 2025 passed the translation Turing test? That's what this team was all about, to say, well, it's finally time to try to conduct a translation Turing test. And I'd like to thank the team. They've all worked so hard, and we've come a long way. But it's not a final answer. It's one translation Turing test for one use case among many. But next time it's done, we'd like to benefit from what we've done over the last 6 months. Or you might do your own. So what is a better question? This is kind of the bottom line. What is a better question than when will machine translation replace human translators? You can guess my answer to the question of will that happen. I won't state it right now, but you can ask me later. My position is, rather than trying to predict the date like Alec Ross, by 2026, next year, there will be no more human translators, no more professional translators. I think that that is counterproductive. I think a better question is identify use cases when professionally verified translation is needed, use cases where unverified translation, either non-professional humans or raw automatic output, are suitable and not too risky. And when a professional is needed, how can we augment the capabilities of the professional? That's my position. I imagine that each person on this team has their own position on that, and that's fine. We've somehow learned to work together. Now, how can we rise above? Here's my parting statement for advice to translators. If you are a translator or you know a translator who's worried about the future, here's my advice. As chair of the North American region of FIT, the International Federation of Translators, focus on use cases where professionally verified translation is needed. And within that, look for high-value content where mistakes matter. It actually matters whether there's a mistake in the translation. High-level content where it cannot be translated well, sentence by sentence, out of context. If you can scramble the sentences and pick out one at random and translate it well, it's not high-level content, the way I'm defining it. And high expertise content. I think the day of the general human translator, generalist, is almost over. We now need those who have specialized. And so choose high expertise content, where in-depth subject matter knowledge matters. So here's me, my email address. You can also, it's also on the webpage and the website. All you need to remember or write down is ttt.org. There we go. And that's it. Thank you. Any questions at that point? And if you don't have them yet, you can, I think there'll be an opportunity for questions throughout the morning as things bubble and simmer.
No questions? Okay, then we just go ahead with our next item. And this is Brendan here. He is in Utah, still working, I guess, on the later part of this tutorial. But he has prepared this clip here, so I will play this clip here, and that explains the experimental setup that Helen already alluded to.
Good morning, everyone. Today, I'll be walking you through the experimental setup for a translation Turing test by outlining the key roles in a TTT and how each participant contributed to the overall process of generating data that could be handed off to judges and then be used to judge whether or not ChatGPT can pass a translation Turing test in this situation. Okay, so for starters, let's begin with the client. In this TTT, the client was played by myself, Brandon. My job was to initiate communication with the translation systems that we had set up and to deliver them translation tasks. Just as for a real-world client interacting with language service companies, my point of contact was the project managers. I worked with them to negotiate translation specifications that fulfilled the fictional requirements of my fictional company to translate a fictional flyer that we had created for the purpose of this experiment. And as needed, I asked for adjustments to the translations as I identified errors, or at least what I claimed to be errors. It was up to the project managers to satisfy my concerns as a customer. All communication was handled through email. Importantly, we preserved the anonymity of the project managers by filtering all emails between the client and the PMs through a mediator. Thus, I never knew the identity of any of the project managers that I was interacting with. Next, let's talk about the mediator, played by Long Hui, one of our research team members. Her job was to maintain fairness across the communications between the client and the PMs by forwarding emails between parties. The PMs and the client never actually interacted directly, but used the mediator as an intermediary, which gave her the chance to sanitize any information that would make it obvious to the client or to later judges who was a human and who was not. For example, the mediator replaced personal names in email signatures with PM1 or PM2 as appropriate. And then for the PM who was ChatGPT, the mediator fed the client's emails into the conversation interface and pasted the AI's raw responses just into an email back to the client. This way, every PM appeared to the client in its own anonymous email thread between themselves and the mediator. Now let's move on to the project managers, or PMs. There were 3 distinct PMs in our setup, each representing a different level of professional expertise. PM1 was a human professional, someone with years of direct experience in project management within the language services industry. PM2 was a human amateur who had no formal training or professional experience in translation project management. However, they were given access to ASTM F2575, a standard that regulates the translation industry. They were allowed to study this and ask whatever questions they wanted. PM3 was a machine system, who in this case was a ChatGPT agent that our team member Masaru Yamada had fine-tuned to respond as if it were a human expert. It operated without human intervention, except for Langhui's mediation between its conversation interface and the emails to the client. Each PM was in charge of responsibly negotiating translation specifications, respectfully handling client concerns, and relaying materials between the client and their translator. And just to be clear, the index numbers were all randomized for correspondence. For example, the client's actual email thread with the human professional, whom I just described as PM1, may or may not have actually been labeled as PM1. We scrambled it for anonymity between this presentation and when we actually did it. And complementing the PMs were the translators, again grouped into the same 3 categories. Translator 1 was a human translator with professional experience. Translator 2 was a human with language proficiency, but no professional translation background. And Translator 3 was simply the same machine system that served as a project manager, since our ChatGPT agent had been fine-tuned to return translations as well. And none of these translators ever came into contact with the client. They interacted with their PM to receive translation jobs in order to satisfy the client's requests. That always included an initial translation and a retranslation if the client asked for one and if the project manager agreed. So the PMs worked with the translators of the corresponding type, from human expert to human amateur to AI system, together forming a complete language service provider, or LSP. PMs oversaw the big picture and dealt with clients, while translators brought to bear their linguistic expertise to realize translations, except for the case of ChatGPT where it just did both. Each LSP functioned independently so that we simultaneously simulated real-world workflows. And together, these client-PM correspondences, translations, and retranslations taken from these LSPs were compiled into packages called a paper trail. One paper trail was produced for each LSP, and these paper trails are what we finally handed off to the judges. Finally, and crucially, we get to the last role of this experiment, the judges. These were independent evaluators who knew the industry well. Importantly, they reviewed paper trails blindly, meaning they did not know which packages came from humans or from AI. The purpose was to see if the judges could, for this specific translation use case, tell the difference between the paper trails from an all-machine LSP and those from an LSP that had a human in the loop, professional or otherwise. This judgment process was what made it a true Turing test for translation. And in addition, we compiled the paper trails into a Google Forms survey that we'll soon share with you all. We want you to have the chance to make your own judgments about who's who before we reveal what the judges thought. So, thank you. That's all from me for now.
Hello, everyone.
Okay.
I'm Masaru Yamada.
Okay, so I would like to go back to that previous clip and do, if I may, do some kind of rectification.
Manager.
So Brandon had this picture here, okay, and there's the mediator, and that's Longhui, okay, one of our participants. And Brandon is the fake client, so he is a requester, as you say, no? And he was actually communicating with Longhui. So this PM1, PM2, PM3 are, of course, known to the mediator, right? But they were not known to the client. So I suggested, but this clip is very recent, so we couldn't really rehearse this. So I think a better, more understandable version of that would be the PM1, PM2, PM3 appear like PM1, PM2, PM3 for the client, and there's a communication between the mediator and the client only knows these acronyms PM1, PM2, PM3, but the mediator, of course, knows that who is the professional project manager, who is the novice project manager, and who is ChatGPT, okay? So I suggested to him, but I guess there was not enough time, to actually move this column here to that side and put in here novice, professional, and ChatGPT, okay? And then, so there is this communication thing here, and the task then would be to figure out, to associate the PM, which PM123 corresponds to which, to the novice, to the professional, and to ChatGPT, right? So if it was presented like this way, I think it would be a little bit clearer. And the numbers here permute, okay? So it's, that's also what Brandon mentioned, yeah? So you don't know who is who, which PM number corresponds to which class of translation project managers, okay? Does that make sense to you? Yeah? Okay, so then the next clip is about ChatGPT. So we have 3 project managers, okay? One of them is ChatGPT, and Masaru will here talk about ChatGPT and how he is, well, he is very skilled in working with ChatGPT and all this, and he had this idea to implement this ChatGPT thing. So he will talk about this.
Hello, everyone. I'm Masaru Yamada from Rikyo University. I'll share the technical overview of how we built and tuned an AI agent to serve as a translation project manager, handling everything from client emails to final delivery. First, the background and objectives. In a typical localization project, project managers spend significant time reading client emails, clarifying requirements, and confirming specs. Our goal was to automate those routine tasks, relieve human PMs of repetitive work, and ensure every interaction meets our quality standards. Here's our technology stack. We leveraged GPT 4.0 under the GPT/MyGPT framework for the core language capabilities. Development took place in a secure enterprise licensed environment. Using the team version license allowed us to isolate data and comply with our internal security policies. This is the actual GPT screen. Since this is a customized agent, you just copy and paste a client's email into this chat box and it will generate an appropriate response. In designing prompts, we encoded the three-stage workflow: pre-production, production, and post-production into natural language instructions. For example, read the client's request, weave the specs into a concise narrative, then ask any clarifying questions. This approach keeps responses fluid and human-like. For the tuning phase, we didn't perform a full-scale fine-tuning. Instead, we ran a handful of pilot email exchanges through the agent. During these trials, we stabilized its output by stripping out any markdown remnants and forcing plain text formatting. We also trimmed down overly long or repetitive sentences to keep replies concise. Finally, we applied a few targeted patches to ensure a consistent, professional tone across all messages. Security was paramount. All data resides in a team-licensed workspace with strict role-based access. Every action is logged, and we maintain version control on both prompts and fine-tuning checkpoints to ensure full traceability. Finally, our future outlook. We plan to expand the agent to handle multiple locales, integrate directly with MTPE pipelines, and continuously refine the model using real-world production metrics. Thank you for your attention.
Hello, my name is Maahi Bandy.
Okay, in a moment. Okay. So that was the end of our first session, and we're already 5 minutes over. We just continue, okay? Or is there any question? Yep.
Not to add another layer of complication, but the pairs.
Maybe there's a microphone so the remote people can hear you too. There are not so many, but some important, perhaps.
Yes, I'm Alexis Siegel from the UN. I was just wondering, in terms of the setup of the experiment, that the pairs were matched with expertise, right? So ChatGPT was both the project manager and the translator. The amateur was both an amateur PM and an amateur translator. And as a further step, there wasn't the idea of kind of separating out the impact of the project manager versus the translator, say ChatGPT working with a professional translator and this kind of thing. I'm adding a layer of complication that might not be necessary for this experiment. But, yeah.
We could have delayed the tutorial for a year.
Right.
Then we would have collected 50 versions of it,
Right.
And had more sophisticated statistics probably.
I'll take responsibility for the simplification. It seemed logical to have only 3 providers. One, all machine, totally automatic project manager, automatic translation. Another one, professional, all professional. Professional project manager with experience, professional translator. And then the third one was interesting. We could have just had 2, but we wanted the third one, which is what can an amateur project manager do by studying this standard? It turns out that the ASTM translation standard encapsulates, as it should, a lot of knowledge about project management. And that's how this person here, you'll see her qualifications are not stellar, but she did a great job because she studied the standard. That's an advertisement for ASTM, by the way, and the value of the standard. So yes, we only had 3 appropriately paired providers, but you're welcome to set up your own experiment. And I hope we'll have further discussions with the United Nations. You're on my list of people to contact. You want to respond to that?
No. Thank you.
Okay, so in this second session, we have planned to introduce our 3 project managers, which is the professional manager, Daniel Sebesta. Can you hear me? Yes? Good.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Very good.
Great.
So first, Daniel is presenting himself. He is a professional, well, he plays the professional project manager. He is certainly a professional translator. Then we have Maahi, who is this student translator, and Masru has also prepared a small clip with his ChatGPT thing. And then we are going to distribute this paper trail, it's called, I think, no, between those, this requester, Brandon, and the 3 project managers. And we will ask you to look at their email exchange to figure out who is who, okay? Which project manager PM123 is the professional, the novice, and ChatGPT. Okay, we'll explain this little by little, but first now, Daniel, are you ready to go?
I am. Thank you, Michael. So again, Daniel Sebesta here. I was asked by the research team to act as one of the project managers in the test, as you just heard extensively. I have been in the language industry for the last 22 years or so, and I have been wearing many different hats, but if I had to pick my primary one, that would be that of a translator, a linguist, like Michael said. I translate in a few language pairs, all in combination with Czech, and I am based in Prague, Czech Republic. I also own a small family-operated LSP where we do almost everything in-house. We focus on white glove service for our clients operating in the Czech and partially Slovak market, and we outsource only when we absolutely have to. As to the project manager role in this test and overall, I think it is crucial for a project manager to be linguistically informed, ideally multilingual. That does not necessarily mean they need to actively speak every language they handle, but I think it is tremendously advantageous for them to speak several languages and be able to navigate a foreign language text to a degree where they can relate to what is being discussed between the linguist and the client. In an ideal world, of course, the PM would have the time to read the whole source text up front and identify potential pitfalls, but unfortunately we do not always live in an ideal world. But at the very least, I think the PM should bring critical thinking to the table, along with a healthy dose of empathy for the linguist and for the client. And I believe that these human qualities make a human PM truly stand out in this age of AI and automation. Over to you, Michael.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. So this was Daniel, the our professional project manager. How can I come back to this, to my clips here? Here, okay, it's here. So this is Maahi, and Maahi is our, we have a program at Kent State University for high school students to join research, okay? And I was in that position to get these high school students, and I suggested her to, well, why don't you join this as a project manager? So she's a high school student, and she did extremely well.
Hello, my name is Maahi Bandy. I'm a high school student enrolled in undergraduate courses at Kent State University. I served as the novice translation project manager in this TTT experiment. So as the novice, I had no experience in the language industry and no training in translation. Going into the experiment, I had virtually no background other than being bilingual myself and the translation standard. I was given the ASTM F2575 to study and the opportunity to ask questions. But having never seen a good example before, it was hard to know what the right questions were to ask. My interpretation of the translation standard became almost a checklist of everything I needed to consider during a translation project. However, as I got into translation projects, I realized that there was more to consider than what I had taken away from the translation standard. So my overall perspective on the translation standard is that it is helpful in getting oriented and starting off in the right direction, for sure. But to be used most effectively, an example of it applied correctly to the translation process would have been helpful, especially for me as a novice, and I didn't have any training on how to use the translation standard. Overall, I've had a great experience as a project manager in this TTT experiment, and I've learned a lot about the language industry and the importance of translational studies. So that's a bit about me and my experience. Thank you so much.
Hi there.
Okay, so this was Maahi, our second project manager. Okay, as you see, novice, high school student, a couple of weeks training, no idea what translation is all about. And this is the third one. This is, as you can guess, it's the completely automated agent. Okay.
Hi there. I'm your translation project manager, here to ensure your translation project is smooth, accurate, and aligned with your goals. From defining the scope and style to managing the translation and final delivery, I'll guide each step with care and professionalism. Before we begin, I'll help confirm key details, so the final result fits your needs perfectly. I'll also handle any quality checks and revisions so you don't have to worry about the details. And just so you know, I may be AI, but when it comes to project management, I won't be outdone by any human PM.
That's to be verified. Okay, this is something else. Okay, so you have an idea of our project managers, okay? And now so you're supposed now to go back to this page here, okay? And on this page, if everybody, I hope, has the possibility to do this, okay? If you click here or you type this in.
How many of you who have a computer connected to the internet are able to get into the TTT.org website?
Okay,
Any
excellent. Please.
access issues?
So if I click here, I hopefully will end up on this page here. There's the program here. Okay, we are already here. We're done with this part here. Okay, we're right now here. So we saw the three project managers. Okay, and that's what we call now first round. So this is the first round negotiation that Brandon talked about. He, as a requester, addresses these three clients via our moderator. Okay, so he doesn't know who is who. And now, if you click on these instructions here, it will open this Word file here and explain the kind of a task that we also gave to some students, okay? So Brandon would like to translate an advertisement flyer, Loom, for a full body deodorant, Loom, into French, from English into French. He contacted 3 different translation project managers, PM1, PM2, PM3, not knowing that A, there's a highly experienced translation project manager, which is, as you have seen, Daniel Sebesta, an inexperienced high school student trained for 2 weeks, Maahi, and ChatGPT, the agent, prompted to simulate a project manager. You have seen the 3 project managers, okay, which you're already in an advantage to Brandon, who did not see those guys, no? But he knew, of course, that they're 3 different. So there is this exchange, mail exchange between the 3 project managers and Brandon, mediated through Longquay. And by clicking on this link here, can we click here? You will be able to see this is the same text actually, and then there are 3 files here. PM1, the exchange between Brandon and the first project manager, the exchange of Brandon and the second, and the third project manager. You don't know who is who, and your task will be to read these email exchange and to make a guess who is who. Okay, here is the flyer of the text that is to be translated. This is a...
It's something I forgot.
Okay.
The source text, we commissioned a woman to write it. It's original, authored. We own the copyright to it. It has never been posted, had never been posted to the internet. And it was authored based on the Loom website, but loosely enough that we didn't violate copyright. So this is an original document about this new kind of deodorant.
Yeah, you can read it here. It's the Loom text, okay? So this is this, oops. Where is it? Okay, so can I close it here? Okay, so this is the source text. And Brandon would address these three project managers, asking them whether they can translate this from English into French. You're all knowledgeable in French, I guess, no? and here is the email exchange. So here is from Brandon, hello. Okay, I'm writing to contact you. Then there's a reply from the project manager 1, okay, PM1, Brandon, and so on. So there's a back and forth, only 3-4 pages here for this project manager, different exchange with the other project managers. And once you've made up your mind, you should then go to this page where there is a couple of questions that you're supposed to fill and reply. Okay, I can just briefly show this here. Okay, so you can give your name and so on. Then your role as a language provider, whatever your relation to translation is. Then there's a number of questions, 16 questions. These are from the ISO standards or some standards. It is an excerpt. It is based on these kinds of standards. You should evaluate the project manager 1 on a Likert scale here, 1 to 5. There are 16 questions or something. And then you should guess, is the project manager 1 the professional, the novice, or ChatGPT? And then you can add an answer and give an answer and say why you think this would be the case, okay? And the same thing is here for project manager 2 and for project manager 3. We anticipated 20 minutes for you to go through this. Is that good enough? Yes? Okay, so it would be nice if we get a maximum of these answers here, and then Masaru in the backend will evaluate after 20 minutes. Please download these pages, read it, and make up your mind how all these exchange is, whether you think this looks like a professional, whether it looks like a novice or like a ChatGPT agent. Try to answer these questions here and maybe, click this button here, which one you think is professional, novice, or ChatGPT. And then maybe you can also add, answer these questions 17 and 18. 20 minutes until 10:28. Okay? If there's any question, please go ahead, and everybody please read the stuff and make up your mind. And then we will go on, show the results from our students. We had 20 students or so already doing the same task, and we will show the results. And then the idea is to compare our students with this slightly more professional audience that we have here and see whether we get similar results or whether they're completely different and stuff like this. So if there's any question, please go ahead. I guess most of you can read the stuff and maybe...
We already know one of the difficult items here will be, say, I don't have enough information to make a decision. I'd like to see the translation, and I'd like to see the translation quality evaluation. So we're aware of those limitations. We're just asking, what conclusion can you reach based on this limited information, just the interaction between the requester and the provider? Good luck. I saw this. I carefully kept myself out. Saw this for the very first time yesterday.
Can do here is that you go here and then you see if everything is working correctly.
Hello? Hello, it doesn't come here. That's already good. So I need to switch on the microphone and the speaker now. Hello, Masaru and Longhui, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep. I'm now outside the room and they don't hear it. So I would just like to ask whether you already see incoming information there to evaluate?
Actually, no. Still, nobody has.
Okay.
I think they're still reading the paper trail.
Okay, but you can see each activity on that on the Google site, right?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, because the until like June, last one is June 17th, so we have 21 response. But every time they response, we get a current timestamp here. So I should know, who voted.
When they click send, no?
Yeah. How many audience there are? Like 40?
Yeah, so 48 were in the. I can forward you actually the mail. They send us a mailing a list. Okay. I can forward you this, and it's really, wow, we have all the important people there. It's really amazing.
Yeah.
Here, I'll forward you the list, okay?
Okay.
Lisa Volkart sent it. I just asked her whether it's okay if she's here, Lisa. Tu crois que tu m'as envoyé cette liste-là avec les participants. Oui. Tu crois que c'est un peu privacy issue?
No, because they give us their address mail to you.
Ça va rester dans la groupe.
Oui.
Oui, c'est bien. Oui. D'accord. Merci beaucoup. Et on avait pensé de les envoyer le programme, mais hier, Alain me disait il ne croit pas que ce soit une bonne idée puisque c'est trop tard, tout ça. Comme ça, on n'a pas envoyé. Mais peut-être plus tard, on va le faire. Oui. Merci beaucoup. Okay, so where is it? Actually, Longhui, you already got this list, right? Okay, yes. So I'll forward this to Masaru. And who else? And Alan. And that's it, no? Okay. So, and for your presentation with the results, Longhui, you're all good?
Yeah, I updated everything.
Okay, excellent. And you're still awake enough?
No, not that much.
No, not that much. Yeah, I'm sorry for this, but you have this, and then in 1 hour again, you have a couple of, I don't know.
Yeah.
If you fall asleep, I don't know how we can wake you up. Okay, so in 10 more minutes.
Did anyone finish?
10 more minutes, and then Longhui, you will share, no? Then you will come in. Then Masaru has a couple of minutes to analyze this, and if nothing comes, I don't know. I don't know what to do. then we will just go on with a partial TTT. Okay, let's see. But maybe you can say how many people, Masaru, no? Maybe you can say then how many people contributed and whatever small results you could find. And if there's nothing really interesting, we can also just go ahead with the partial TT. And we're a little bit late anyway, I think. And we will recover from there. Okay. I'll go to the washroom and then I'll come back. Okay?
Okay.
I switch on now the microphone again in the room.
Okay.
Non réalisé.
Okay. Should we? Hmm?
Let's just finish the video for session 3. It's 25 minutes long. Now he only has 15 minutes. So how would I do that? Let's schedule 3. How much time?
Okay, so any remarks or any need for discussion? So what were your findings? What are your impressions? Did you?
Not so easy as I thought it would
Huh?
be. Not so easy as I thought it would be.
Ah, it's not so easy. Okay. Well, I mean, I also think it's okay if you discuss amongst yourself what your opinions are.
Let me ask you a question. If we had done this, attempted to conduct a translation Turing test 5 years ago, I think it would have been much easier to tell, right? So a lot has happened in the last couple of years. Also, this is not an out-of-the-box large language model by any means. Masaru has spent many, many hours training, tuning, educating ChatGPT to be a translation project manager, using valuable information from the international standard and teaching it how to be a translation project manager.
Okay, so then I would suggest we just go on with, I mean, you can, yeah, so please send your evaluation, click on that button, submit your questionnaire, and once this is done, then Masaru will, in the next 5 minutes in Japan, look at it and present the results in about 5 minutes or something. I hopefully get some results, interesting results. But in the meantime, so let's stop it now, okay? Everybody please click on whatever, where you are, click on submit, and then Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
I have only like 10 people responded so far.
10 people, okay. Well, 1/4. Maybe it's good enough to get at least a little bit of an impression. And we want to, so the idea was to compare this audience with our students, right? And Longhui now will talk about the results of the students that you got. Okay? Longhui, your turn.
Okay. If you are still filling out, I will tell you the results now.
But you're telling the results from the students, from our students, right?
But I will reveal.
Yeah, we should wait maybe a little bit.
Ah, so you were looking with Masru into these results from this audience here. Yeah? Okay. But first talk about the students, our questionnaires that we had, no?
Yes, but I will say who is who.
Yes.
Well, that's not a good idea, is it?
Want to know now, or should we build more tension?
No, no.
Maybe we can have final result.
Poor design of the survey. Thank you. Sorry.
What is the poor
They
design?
said we shouldn't have made all the fields mandatory.
Ah.
Maybe we can focus.
Did you hear this? The fields were mandatory. That's why some people got stuck with coming to the end.
Yeah.
And so they couldn't fill it. But anyway,
that maybe we can focus on the question here in the room, like who do we think each of the PMs are, instead of all the others, like raising our hand before you reveal who is who.
Okay, so let's
because
do
that's
that.
actually the, you know.
Okay, so we have, do we have a pencil? No.
No, I'll just count.
You count, okay. So how do we ask this? We have PM 1, 2, 3, and we have 3 permutations. How many? 6 possibilities or something? There is something. So who thinks that PM1 is novice?
Novice.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Wow. 19 people think that PM1 is the novice translator. Who thinks that PM1 is the professional translator? Who? More. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15.
Wow.
And who thinks that it's ChatGPT? PM1? No one. No. Okay. Now, for PM2, who thinks it's the novice? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Who thinks it's the professional? PM2 is the professional. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Who thinks that we're PM2 is ChatGPT? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Wow, it's really a mixed thing here. And now PM2, we were, no? It's ChatGPT. No?
We're not revealing yet.
No. No, I'm asking who? PM3. PM3 novice. 1. PM3 is professional. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. PM3 ChatGPT. Oh, the majority. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, 2, 3, 4, 24. PM3, 24. Okay. So now let's ask Longhui to reveal.
When I did the judging, I'm not sure I had the same PM numbers as you had.
You had. Okay, but you're talking
And I don't know the answer. It hasn't been revealed to me, so, okay.
Okay, so Longhui, your turn. Huh?
I have a guess, but it's based on a global understanding and study of the first interaction, the first translation, the evaluation of the first translation, the reaction of the requester, of the provider to the comments, the whole thing. So I don't have what you're asking for.
Okay, we've anticipated 10 minutes at the very end. So, Longhui, go ahead.
Okay, now I will present the first survey result from our translation students. We got 21 translation students from different institutions, basically US, Japan, and China, participating in our survey for the first round, TTT, assessing the 3 PMs based on their email changes with the client, Brandon. The goal was to determine which PM demonstrated the most professional and human-like translation project manager skills. As you have just done, yeah. So each evaluator reviewed the paper trail and rated the PMs on 15 Likert scale questions, mostly adapted from ASTM F2575. Additionally, evaluators were asked to identify whether each PM was a professional translator, a novice, or GPT. They are also required to answer 2 qualitative questions, same as what you just filled out. So first, we need to reveal the roles for the first round of TTT. So PM1 is the expert. And PM2 is the novice, and PM3 is the GPT. Did you get it right?
Yeah, it's just the majority of people here.
Ah, okay. So for our students, 57% of our students identified PM3 as the AI. And their Likert scale responses also indicated PM3 was their favorite manager. So both, they think PM3 is AI, but at the same time as their favorite project manager. And then here is our 15 Likert scale questions, including confirm languages, clarify purpose, discuss tone or style, agreed on terminology, address the confidentiality, propose methods, provided delivery date, explained pricing, no typos, logically structured messages, show empathy, confirms request and mentioned QA steps and site standards, and not overly templated. Okay, and then we get the average of the scores out of the 15 Likert scale questions on our 5-point scale by our 21 student respondents. We can see that GPT performed the best with a score of 3.91, and the novice project manager gets 3.61, and our expert got overall 2.98 from the Likert scale questions. And when we look at how student evaluators identified each PM, 81% of the students identified PM1 as expert, as novice, and only 19% thought PM1 was professional. But here we should also note that no one thought PM1 was GPT.
That's also what is the case in this table from here.
Oh, that's interesting. And then the second PM2 got mixed result. 47.6% said it's professional, and the 38% suspect it's ChatGPT. And then for PM3, 57% of the students think it's ChatGPT, and we should still remember they have the highest average performance score for ChatGPT.
So it's also very similar here.
Oh, really?
GPT was favorite for PM3, and there's only one person who said it's the novice. Okay.
Oh.
So it looks quite similar.
Okay, so now we can see that it's interesting that students were struggling between PM2 and PM3, and they cannot confidently determine which was the generative AI and which was the professional project manager. But they show a very good agreement that PM1 was a novice, but actually PM1 is the expert. This confusion between professional and AI raises interesting questions about students' perception of the current state of AI capabilities. And let's go into details about what is their strengths and the weaknesses for each PM. So for PM1, which is the expert, the top 3 strengths for the PM1 expert is providing delivery dates and no typos and logically structured message. But PM1, the expert, is bad at addressing the confidentiality, cites the translation standards, and propose the translation methods. And our novice project manager is good at confirming the source text and target text languages and clarifying the project's purpose and discussing the required tone or style. PM2, which is the novice, had the same weak spot as PM1. Confidentiality and the standard, but to a lesser degree. Students also gave low score for PM2 novice on mentioning proofreading and the QA steps, on average 2.67 out of our 5 points. And the last one is the GPT, actually got the highest score. So GPT is best in grammar and free of typos in the messages among the 3. And the GPT is good also in discussing the required tone style, best among the 3. GPT is also good at confirming the source and target languages. Not as good as the novice project manager. So in summary, all 3 PMs showed significant weakness in standard and confidentiality. And then our survey also included 2 open questions. Question 7 is asking about the human likeness understanding. And the question 18 is about other comments, if you want to give additional comments. So we did a qualitative analysis of the responses to question 17 by extracting keywords and categorizing them as either positive or negative in relation to human likeness. For example, positive descriptors include terms such as professional, clear, comprehensive, detailed, effective, and so on. And the negative descriptors include words like template, generic, robotic, lacks, missing, something like this. So based on this word list, we perform the sentiment analysis. The result shows that the PM3, which is GPT, received the highest positive sentiment score at 0.73. It's significantly higher than both PM1 and PM2, which each scored around 0.46 or 0.40. This suggests that student evaluators were considerably more likely to use positive, human-like language when describing GPT as the project manager. And for the question 18, other comments, we quote some of the interesting answers here. One student evaluator said, I would definitely choose PM3, which is GPT, to proceed with the translation task. Okay. In contrast, our experts, project manager, get the most negative review like there's no obvious organization or technical understanding of translation operations. If I were the client, I won't proceed with PM1. Okay. And then PM2, which is novice, was caught in the middle, was described as well-informed but generic checklist. Okay, this is Maahi give you the hints at the beginning when she described checklist. Technical sound, but a lack of contextual nuance suggests ChatGPT. So they think the novice is the ChatGPT. Okay, so the data reveals that despite the GPT is identified as GPT by 57% of the student evaluators, it receives the most positive response. Students thought PM3 is GPT, yet they still chose it as their preferred project manager. This suggests that from students' perspective, what matters most in translation project management is not whether communication is human or AI generated, but whether it effectively addresses client needs with clarity and professionalism. Okay, that's it for my part.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you to everyone. I would suggest we are 15 minutes late. We have a break right now. There was supposed to come this evaluation from your 10 or so submissions. We do this after the break in like a first couple of minutes and have now a break. 15 minutes late. We nevertheless start at 11 o'clock. Is that okay with everyone? Yes? Okay, thank you so much. See you in a moment.
So what happened to the partial TTT?
That comes.
Session 2.
Yeah.
We finished session 2.
That's true.
There's definitely not time in session 2.
No, okay. Longhui? Longhui, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
We skipped this partial TTT, okay?
Okay.
That was one slide anyway only. Because
yes.
that was... Huh?
Yes.
That was at the end of session 2. We skipped this.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Thank you so much. This was very much increased your your presentation. Really good. Okay. And it coincides with what we have here. So far, no, with the hand. Yeah. So you will have. Is it okay? 15 minutes for you to look into the results from Google. Yeah.
I have 20 or so response. So
say it again.
Wow.
20.
There are 20 20 people participating.
Ah, yeah, for the questionnaire, yes.
Okay, excellent. So I don't know. We take the first couple of minutes in the
Yeah,
third
maybe
one.
2 minutes, just 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. In 15 minutes.
Yep.
Well, Sylvia, nice idea. Yeah, so I think we have to go. Professionally verified translation on the one side, unverified on the other, and it branches into non-professional human and raw automatic. The raw automatic is the one that has that AI symbol, but that's not a class. That's a big one. And yes, the same label should be on picture, photos, audio. Yeah. And so, raw automatic translation, there's two labels. Okay. AI, whatever that is, and somebody else. And unverified. No, no person. If there's no person, if there's a person, then it's not fully automatic. Because a person is just unverified. If there's no person involved, it's unverified and automatic. That's the latest. Fine. Yes. Yes.
Okay, should we, hello? Yeah. Should we continue? Are you online, Masaru?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So in this third session, actually, we're continuing with looking into the translations. Right now, we looked into the mail exchange between Brandon, the client, and the project managers. Okay, now we're looking into the translations and methods to evaluate the translation. And then in the fourth session, we are looking into that renegotiation. So Brandon filed some complaints about the quality of the translation and so on, and there's a renegotiation between the three project managers and Brandon, and then we will do something similar what we did already right now. But now we're looking into quality assessment of the three different translations. But Masaru starts with an overview over your results, I believe, no? Is it?
Yes. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So just a quick result.
Black stuff.
Yeah. So I received 21 response from your side, the audience, and this is a summary. I guess so. The most of the result corresponds to the students' evaluation. So PM3, the 61% of people thought it's a ChatGPT, and PM1, 52% people thought it's a novice. And I guess the PM2, the audience having difficulties deciding whether it's a professional or novice or the ChatGPT. So that these results really are in line with the students' expectation. And as far as the detailed questions are concerned, we have 15 questions to evaluate their performance. And so surprisingly, well, unexpectedly, the PM3, the ChatGPT got the highest score anyway. But it's very interesting that you guys thought the ChatGPT is a project manager 3, but you still evaluate the highest, the ChatGPT's performance. And so this is kind of overall view. ChatGPT is orange, and it outperformed most of PM1 and 2 on this kind of proposed method and confidentiality terminologies, and also the confirming the requests. So I think it's a Turing test. People thought PM3 is ChatGPT, but still you guys like the way the ChatGPT manages the translation task. I think that's the impression I got. But yeah, that's everything I have to say about this. Thank you.
Yep. There's a question here. Is there a microphone?
I was curious as to how it happened that the PM3, the ChatGPT, offered a free translation, because one of the criteria was explain pricing and things like that, and that's also what I thought, that the students said that they would go with PM3 as the project manager, and I said, well, if it's free, of course, why not as a client? But is that an issue with like a feature of ChatGPT wanting to be agreeable and having thinking, oh, this will please the client, and giving away the shop? I mean, if this was, because it wasn't even offered as a first step, because we want to build a client relation and we want to show how good we are, we'll offer you a first free translation, and then the cost would have been so much if you were an established client. So I was just wondering about that. Is there a kind of explanation as to how that came about?
Masaru, did you hear the question? So I think in this paper trail from ChatGPT offered to make this free, the translation, and I was also very surprised to read this. And one student even said, oh, that can only be ChatGPT, nobody else would say that. And the question was whether this is something that ChatGPT would do regularly to please people and to get into the good books or something, no, of those people. Do you have this kind of experience, Masaru? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello, hello? You cannot hear us? Oh, he
disappeared.
Okay. Well.
Yeah, so it's actually, I can answer this. It's actually when we first have the meetings about the Turing test and the agent building, Masaru actually trained the GPT to say it's complementary.
Yeah, I was actually wondering whether we should have taken this out, because I mean, that would not be a really reliable, that would be manipulating an answer. But I thought this is a little bit beyond, beyond the kind of questions we would be interested in, right? But we left it in, so yeah, I don't know. Maybe, do you think it would have been a good idea to take this out, that sentence? Yeah, I think it would have, yeah. Yeah. And it would not have triggered such questions, no? Yeah, but it's there, yeah. Any other question? No? Okay, then Alan continues explaining MQM, I think. And after this, Brandon has prepared a clip, but it's still uploading, it seems. So maybe he will join us from Utah. It's now about, what, 3 o'clock in the morning in Utah? So he was working all night on that thing, and I hope he will still be sufficiently awake to give a presentation. But first, let's see. I don't think so. Do you have slides?
No.
No, okay.
Thank you. So we were going to talk about the third bell. There's no time right now. What's the third bell? Can you remember from my initial presentation? First, translate according to specifications, which you develop. 2, respond to the analysis or the evaluation, the analytic evaluation or assessment of the translation. What was the third bell? Yes, that's part of the second. And the third one was to change the specifications and say, now I want a different translation. And so we had a plan for changing the specification to say, no, we no longer want to address an audience of French men. We now want to address an audience of Chinese women in China, in Chinese. That's quite a change in specification. We haven't gotten very far on that, but that will be an interesting aspect of this translation Turing test. Now, the part that I have worked on the most over the last couple months with Brandon, who will be joining us one way or another here very shortly, is the question of conducting an analytic translation quality evaluation using MQM. That is a crucial part of a TTT. It's explained in detail in the original paper, the 2012, the written version of my 2012 address. It's touched on, only touched on in my slides. But if we go to the website, ttt.org, we can go to the section about -TQE. Is there somewhere I can type that in and make it appear? Because that's what I need right now, is to be able to show that that web page. On the TTT website. Yeah.
Is it?
There we go.
Is it here?
And now go down to let's go back to the outline.
Which outline?
Well, simply put up there instead, just put after ttt.org, put /TQE.
Oh.
About TQE. About TQE. About -TQE.
Like this, minus?
Yes. And see what happens.
TQE?
Yes.
Okay.
There we go. So we have spent several hundred hours preparing this tutorial for you, because we anticipate that most of you are not professional translators. We have a tutorial for translators, and when we showed it to non-translators to test it, they said, we don't understand it. So we've developed this from scratch. This is how to conduct a translation quality evaluation using MQM. It's more than just selecting error types, much more. Please take a look. I'd love to interact with you individually about this. It will take maybe 2 or 3 hours per person for an individual session. This is a big part of my life. Enjoy this particular tutorial, sub-tutorial on evaluating the quality of a translation. There we go.
Thank you. Now, Brendan will talk about in more detail MQ, multimodal, what is MQM? So you will talk about MQM, right? Brendan, are you there? Okay, good. We
Yes,
hear you.
yes. I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'm here. I sent a link to my clip. It's been uploaded to YouTube.
And you, okay, so I should get it from there. And
yeah, if you can click on it.
Maybe. So where?
Is it not there?
Where? We already, so how do I come there?
It might still be processing. You might just have to speak to us live. Person to person, Brandon.
Brandon, can you do that or?
Now, would it be possible for me to share my screen?
Sure.
Okay. Now I could just play the video off of my.
I can see the video. I'll send the link in the chat. Chat.
Where is chat en français? Conversation, d'accord. Ceci. Okay, is it this? Good. Okay, so we have your clip. Thank you. Are there any questions? Yep.
So did I get it right that number 3?
Can you use the microphone?
Did I get it right that number 3 was the AI PM and the AI translator, and all the MQM feedback and comments have been fully implemented automatically because the customer was satisfied at the end?
I'm not sure I fully understood your question. So your question is whether the quality assessment was implemented automatically?
Yes, yes,
no,
because
well,
this was PM3. So the last one was PM3, and PM3 was ChatGPT.
Right, but I guess it's about the translation. So Brandon, we're talking about the translations, and he annotated errors in the translation manually using this TQ tool that he introduced.
And the PM sent back this MQM, and the response was we implemented all of this, and the client was happy. So who actually implemented this? Because there was a question whether the translator was also AI. So I'm just wondering whether it was an AI translator who implemented this, or whether it was...
Okay, Brandon, do you... no, that's a question to Longhui, actually, no? So I think I understood the question. Brandon had some complaints about the translation. Then he comes back to the project manager. The project manager does some answers or modifies the translation. And in the case of the machine translation, who did this modification of the MT output? How did the agent, ChatGPT, what did ChatGPT do with the machine translation output or with the complaint of Brandon? Anyone there who can answer this question?
As for ChatGPT, after we receive the complaints from clients, we just, communicate that message to ChatGPT. Then ChatGPT, we thought, the modify the translation. So
and then ChatGPT produced an ameliorated translation, and we stopped discussing this. I mean, then it would otherwise go in a third round, I guess, no? And a fourth and a fifth round if the client is still not happy with the translation. I think we have the original translation. So in the next paper trail that we are looking into in the next session, we will have two translations: the original translation, the communication between Brandon and these three project managers, and the ameliorated, the refined translation, I think. And I don't know, Brandon didn't check that second translation, whether this has actually addressed these errors. That's my understanding. Did you?
Yeah, I did, and it was mostly Project Manager 1, Project Manager 3 that solved a lot of the errors, and Project Manager 2 did not.
Okay, but at this point we don't know who is Project Manager 1 and 2 and 3, right? Because in the second round they are permuted. Is it?
I think so.
Is that an answer to your question? Yeah. Okay, if there's no further questions, then we still have another view on that data that Longhui worked on, where she looked at syntactic complexity and the relation of the syntactic complexity of the different translations and the source text with respect to errors. Do you still want to present this, Longhui?
Yes.
Okay. You can share your screen.
Yes. So yes, I will start from Brandon. Brandon annotated the MQM-based manual annotations. So I conducted the text level error distribution analysis and identified errors falls into actually 5 main categories: accuracy, verity, we also called audience appropriateness, linguistic conventions, style, and terminology. The other 2 main categories doesn't have any error occurrences. And the translation delivered by novice project manager showed most issues in accuracy, linguistic conventions, and style. And GPT's translation was primarily problematic in terms of accuracy and verity. Meanwhile, the translation delivered by expert showed the most issues with terminology. Brandon also assigned each error a severity level, either major or minor, with major error weighted at 5 points and minor error weighted at 1 point. This allowed us to calculate the total penalty points for each translation. As expected, the expert got the least penalty points for 8 points across 4 total errors, and the GPT's translation came in second with 14 penalty errors, penalty points across 6 errors. And the novice translation had the highest penalty points, 33 points from 13 errors, indicating the lowest translation quality overall. While this manual evaluation provides a solid text-level assessment of translation quality, more fine-grained analysis, such as word-level quality evaluation and correlations with specific linguistic features of both the source and target text at sentence level, can be conducted using tools like the Crit TPR-DB. Okay, so we use the Yawa tool shown in this slide to upload the byte text to the TPR-DB. Once the byte text is successfully uploaded, the source text and target text are automatically sentence aligned. During the upload process, there is also an option here for automatic word alignment, which enables immediate word level alignment upon completion, as shown in this screenshot. This one. For this tutorial, we've created an account specifically for MT Summit 2025. The dataset used here, which is TTT Loom French SI, is already word aligned and annotated for errors. And the same error as Brandon did, and we applied this TPR-DB platform. If you are interested, you can access and explore this dataset directly through the TPR-DB platform. Here's the annotation interface on Yawa tool in TPR-DB. We apply the same error annotation as Brandon. The only difference is on TPR-DB, the errors are counted by word. For instance, in this example, the source segment is clinically proven, developed by an OBGYN. Loom is tested and proven to block odor before it even starts. And one of the translation is this French sentence. According to the results of the manual annotation, the translation of this OBGYN into the phrase here was considered as a minor variety error. So we would choose from here and highlight it in light green. And the translation of loom is tested and proven to block is highlighted as a minor linguistic convention error, highlighted in light pink. The translation of even starts into this word in French was also marked as minor linguistic convention error, highlighted in also light pink. So after the counting the number of errors by word, we normalize the error count by the number of source text tokens per sentence, and then we can calculate the average error rate. So this will lead to slightly different result compared to the earlier text level analysis. As shown in this table, rather than being on par with GPT as in the text level evaluation, the novice now show a significantly higher average error rate for accuracy related errors. And then we can check more specific linguistic details of each translation by implementing 5 syntactic complexity metrics, which might give hints for your next round survey. The first metric is the incomplete dependency theory metric, which measures the syntactic complexity of a word based on how many dependency links are to the right of that word. More outgoing arcs to the right means greater syntactic complexity for this word. And then the second one is dependency locality theory matrix, which measures the syntactic complexity of a word based on the dependency links to the left of that word. If there are more nouns and verbs under the outgoing arcs to the left, this means greater syntactic complexity for that word. And then we have combined IDT-DOT matrix, which measures the syntactic complexity of a word based on the dependency links on both the left side and the right side of the word. Because this considers both sides of the word, we use this one to represent the general syntactic complexity in our analysis. And then we have left embeddedness matrix, which counts how many words go before the main verb. And the last one is nested noun distance matrix, which counts how many noun modifiers go before the noun. After calculating an overall syntactic complexity score from 5 metrics for the translations delivered by each PM, we found that both novice and expert translations show significantly higher complexity than GPT translations in our dataset. And the complexity levels of novice and expert translations are quite similar to each other, while GPT translations remain distinctly less complex. We also examined the correlation between source text syntactic complexity and the various types of translation errors. Overall, we observe that as source text syntactic complexity increases, the number of style-related errors tend to decrease. However, these correlations are not statistically significant because our data set is still small. We can expand in our future work. Another interesting finding is that as general source text syntactic complexity increases, both the expert, which is the red one, and the novice, which is the green one, translations show a rise in minor errors. For the novice, this trend approaches statistically significant. In contrast, GPT, which is the blue one, shows the opposite pattern. Its minor error count decreases as source text complexity increases. This divergence may serve as another potential indicator distinguishing human translators from GPT. So the key takeaway here is, first, the novice translation is of the worst quality in accuracy, verity, and the linguistic conventions. And the second is human translations has overall similar target text complexity. And the third takeaway is when source text complexity increases, human translation got more minor errors, but GPT got less errors. Yeah, and that's for my part.
Any questions with respect to this analysis relating the source text and the translations, the various translations, the errors and the complexity, the syntactic complexity? Yeah.
So thank you very much. I'm Carol from China. Actually, I have a couple of questions. And actually, the first question, actually, what I want to...
It's not really loud, no? Can you... Is it off, maybe? Yeah, now it's on.
I think it's working.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Yeah, actually, the first question, actually, it's not a question. What I want to confirm with you is that your viewpoint is that the MQM evaluation, that method works for both human translations and machine translations, and even large language model translations, right? I just want to confirm that that is your viewpoint, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
MQM applies to all types.
All types of translations. Well, okay, understand. Okay.
Years and years ago.
Okay. And actually, my second question is that, that sometimes I think that a translation might not be wrong, but maybe two translations are both, correct, but one might be better, but the other is good. So that in that kind of cases, the MQM evaluation seems that could not judge which one is better. I mean, from the MQM scores, because both translations are correct, they are all errorless. So it seems that their scores might be the same, but actually one is better.
Yeah, I guess there's minor errors and major errors, so that would make a difference.
There's a fourth type of error. There's minor, major, and critical, but there's a fourth, which is neutral.
Neutral.
And that's what we use for a preferential choice, where you want to say, as an evaluator, I would have preferred this translation, but it is acceptable and it contributes no points, no error points. Does that address your question?
Yeah, so you were saying that actually their scores might be the same, but one is more preferred by the evaluators, but the other is not.
That's correct. There could have been a preference difference if they marked something but gave it a neutral severity level. This is a great topic. We should have a whole tutorial on annotating and on the various scoring models, which are becoming more and more complex to be more effective in the real world.
Okay. Yeah, okay, and maybe my last question is about, I think I would like to know your viewpoint on direct assessment. I mean, that sometimes, people will use kind of an evaluation method, like say, we just give it a direct score out of 100, just maybe to give a translation a direct score, maybe out of 100, and the evaluators just gave it a score like 80 or 90. I mean that I would like to know your viewpoints on this kind of evaluation in comparison with MQM evaluation.
In translation quality evaluation, you have reference-based, reference-free. A blue score is reference-based. You have to have an existing translation. MQM is fundamentally reference-free. You don't need an existing translation. It's also analytic versus non-analytic. Blue scores are not analytic. They only give a number. But MQM is a number derived from detailed annotations, and you can see how you get it, exactly how you get it, and point back to the individual errors, which, well, if you ask my perspective, makes MQM, it's more expensive, but it's worth it when you need the analytic evaluation, because otherwise you don't know what to do to fix it. If it's not analytic and you just have a number, you don't know what to do to make the number better.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. One more question here.
Yes, in the analytics that Long Wei was showing, she mentioned something, and I'm just curious if she could elaborate on that. GPT did well with complexity growing, which is the opposite of what everybody says, that the AI gets lost when the sentences are too long. So why is that happening?
Did you hear this, Long Wei?
Yes.
And
I
you have
think
an answer.
I don't know.
No, it's very fun. It's surprising.
Yeah, it's surprising. I suggest like I interpret it like this is a different I can say behavior to human being. Human being gets confused when the source text complexity get higher. But GPT, I don't know what is the training data there. Maybe because they already get trained by this kind of similar context or similar text, so they can do well in this specific sentence or task.
Basically, we don't know.
Yeah.
One more question there. Two more, three. Oh.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. I'm Francesco Fernicola of the European Parliament, Director at the Citizens Language. I work in the speech-to-text unit, and we also employ the MQM for evaluations. And my question was mostly on two aspects of how you applied it in this case. So one was whether there was a limit of error annotations that could be assigned to a segment before this segment was considered unusable, pretty much. So if in our case, for example, we often employ 5 as the limit. So if a segment would have more than 5 errors, we just consider that as a critical absolute error. And the second question would be whether there is also an expression of that score that I saw. I did join the session later, so I apologize for that, on a set scale between 0 to 25 that you use as well, because in our case, we also have used it as a reverse quality score for each segment, where it goes to 0 as a perfect translation with no errors, to 25 being the critical amount of errors, that is 5 major errors in a single sentence. And yeah, was just curious about these two things.
On your first question, there's no limit built into MQM regarding how many errors can be annotated on a particular translation unit, meaning a source segment paired with a target segment. We think that is up to the implementer to impose a limit. On the second question is about annotating. See, no, just a minute. I was so focused on the first one. Give me a hint. No, it's very important. What was the second one about? Oh, yes, it was about the different scoring models. Okay. If you simply add up scoring error points with severity multipliers, you get what's called the absolute penalty total, APT, which is universal in all the various scoring models. They start with APT, and 0 is perfect, no errors. But the next stage in scoring is to calculate a number where a higher score is better. And that's where you also normalize according to sample length. And then it gets much more complicated. That's actually a lot of work being done there on linear versus non-linear scoring models, calibrated linear versus non-calibrated linear. And this is worth at least another tutorial to get into the complexities, and something we are actively pursuing, especially the non-linear scoring models are very new. Love to discuss it with you.
Hello, good morning. Last year I did my master's dissertation and I used MQM extensively, so thank you. I have one question about it's a very particular question, but I saw that in this study you used the verity dimension, and it was one question that I even emailed you about. Professor Su responded to me, but I was interested in knowing in this case, because it's an advertisement, what did you perceive as verity? Because you included both that and locale conventions, which for me it was different. Or to me it was actually basically the same.
Locale conventions and verity locale convention errors and verity errors are very different. Locale conventions are more mechanical, like the format of a date or a time. Verity errors are where you actually have to get outside the text and get into the culture or the legal system of the target locale. And yes, they share the notion of locale, but the locale conventions are very formalized and mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
I was excluded from the evaluation here so that I could be a judge at the end and not be influenced. So I suspect that the verity error they applied to was not addressing, not localizing sufficiently from a female audience of the original source text. It was written for a female audience to a male audience, which is more than just locale conventions, like the date format.
Yeah, precisely. But what gets me is that the verity had this truthfulness component, and here you kind of merged verity and audience appropriateness, so that the truthfulness in this case would be the gender or the instructions for that particular marketing text. Did I understand that correctly?
I will not speak to the exact process used because I was not involved in the evaluation. But that is also, it's a very tricky point, how to go beyond the mechanical aspects of locale errors. Doesn't apply so much to Eurospeak, which has all been normalized across countries. But when you get into more product development and advertising, then it becomes much more relevant. Very interesting topic, which of course we cannot treat in detail here. But please add yourself to the mailing list.
All right.
Yes.
I just have one more question. Sorry, I didn't ask before, but I just thought about it later, about the training of the ChatGPT agent and as project manager. Did you define a certain set point at, okay, this moment here, we need to switch to a human, like in a hypothetical use, if you were using the agent ChatGPT as a project manager, if it did you decide on a certain point that you'd say, okay, now I need a human project manager to interfere, or did you consider this?
My understanding was that Masaru said, we're going to make this self-contained, never ask for help. Yes, I'll do the full project management with confidence, just like most of these, sometimes overconfidence in my opinion, but
he was quite confident, no? This white guy on the stage, no? Yeah. If you remember in that clip. Was there one more question? Ah, okay. Huh?
I wish I had this tool last year.
Hi, as a person also develops his own automatic translation metric, I have a question for especially the using of MQM. I think the most problematic part of MQM is the evaluator profile. For example, you set up.
Could you say it one more time?
I think the first issue of using or standardizing MQM is the evaluator's profile. For example, you set up the same experiment like the next 3 months, the thoughts of the evaluators may change even with the same person. And the second one is, for example, we talk about at the very beginning of the project design, we say intended purpose, intended audience, like the functionality translation studies concepts. But in MQM, we just look at like the word counts, the distance between verbs and the nouns maybe, but we never consider did the translation get the intended purpose at the target text. So I think that's my concern about using MQM.
That is such an important point. It's a common, what you describe is a common misuse of MQM. MQM, any MQM evaluation, this is from the beginning, this is not a new addition, must be based on a particular metric, which must be based on specifications, including audience and purpose. Every annotation must be done by a competent human evaluator who takes into account audience and purpose. If it's not taken into account, it's not true MQM. Unfortunately, many MQM evaluations are not done properly. This is one reason that we've developed this tutorial. This is the first end-to-end tutorial for MQM, and we need to go out and discuss with implementers the full picture of MQM, which addresses the very important point you just brought up.
I think this is the tutorial that he pointed to on his website. It's not this tutorial, it's the online tutorial. Yes. It's part of it. It's part of it.
Hi, thank you for the tutorial. So this question may be a bit off topic, but it touches on something you said before about these nonlinear relationships or between quality, perceived quality and actual quality as it is usually measured now. So my question is, what are the implications for researchers who are working with human evaluation, but also automatic metrics, which are essentially linear? Like,
Thank you. I was waiting for a segue into automatic quality estimation. Another whole topic, extraordinarily problematic. I have a strong position here. There is no threshold, no matter how high, that you can set to reliably allow translation units to go through to the end user without post-editing, contrary to industry claims. That's a very strong statement, and I'm ready to defend it. Now, that's part of the question. This whole thing of nonlinear scoring models is just beginning. Just actually a few hours ago, I received from our colleague Serge Gladkov a new draft of his paper that he's planning. I can't give it to you yet, but maybe within a few days, he'll post it to archive, pre-publication, where he discusses nonlinear scoring related to various psycholinguistic models. It's a very interesting topic which we'll have to pursue.
Okay, so questions are exhausted for the moment. We are quite behind time. In fact, actually, we wanted to continue with the second round paper trail. Where is it? Here. If we go back to, where is it? Here. No. Okay. Where is it? Okay, I go back here. And we have this whole thing here, which is the paper trail when Brandon complains about the errors that we are talking about now for quite some time. So he has explained how he figured out the errors and so on. He has said how he converted these MQM errors and all this into complaints towards the project manager. And then he sent these mails to the project manager to say, look, there's an issue with your translation and so on, and how can you go about it, okay? And this is the paper trail, and the idea was here, so there's an introductory text here, which looks quite similar to the other one that we had. So Brandon is, again, this project manager here, and he doesn't know who is who, okay? So there's also PM1, PM2, PM3, but this time it's permuted. It's not the same order as in the other first round. And then there is a paper trail here about his complaints and how the project manager answers. And the idea was that you, like in the second session, go over it and fill this questionnaire here, okay? So here is the email exchange. Here are the retranslations. Here is the email exchange between Brandon and the project manager. Well, not necessarily the same order as we had before. Here is the revised translation. And the idea was to go then here for you to look at it and fill this questionnaire here, very similar to what we had before. But now our tutorial is over in 10 minutes, so I don't think we managed to do this. But if you like to, you're very much welcome to fill the second round, and we will make public the outcome. But we have also...
No, not public.
Public? Not public?
We'll
not
only
public.
send it to you if you opt in to the mailing list.
Okay, so it's not public.
That's motivation.
But okay. But we did the same thing also with our students, okay? And there we have similar results as we had before. And maybe we can, in the last 10 minutes, present these results. So the thing is a little bit different, right? So first we had the source text, we called this source text negotiation, where Brandon negotiated how the source text should be translated. Here we have the negotiation how the project manager should go about complaints, no? And how he answers and addresses those complaints. Okay, you can see this paper trail there, and please fill these forms, okay? But due to lack of time, I would maybe suggest that, Longhui, you still have this evaluation, right, of this the second round.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. How do I come back here? Okay. Can you present this to us?
Yes.
And then we take up other questions, and I guess we can. Maybe you talk about your evaluation too, if you like, and then we finish. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Now it's the second round. The second round, we have 11 student evaluators from different institutions to fill in the form because it's still collecting. So now we have 11 students evaluations for the second round. And the second round has 14 Likert scale questions, 1 judgment question, and 2 qualitative questions. We also conducted the sentiment analysis on the written feedback to understand the qualitative aspects of their evaluations. For the second round, we also try to reveal who is who now. So for the second round, the PM1 is the novice, PM2 is the GPT, and PM3 is the expert. So this time, while 100% of our students correctly identified PM2 as GPT, their Likert scale responses still indicated that GPT was their favorite manager. So we can briefly review the 14 Likert scale questions here, which is a little bit different from the first round because the second round mostly revolves around how to handle the complaints and how to understand and resolve the problems. Looking at the average scores out of the 14 Likert scale questions on our 5-point scale, for the second round still, GPT performed the best with an average score of 4.14, and the expert scored slightly lower at 4.03, and novice scored the lowest at 3.68. For PM1, which is the novice, actually, 72.7% of students identify PM1 as novice, which is correct. And 27.3% of them think it's professional. No one thought PM1 is GPT. And PM2 actually is GPT. It got 100% GPT identification, which is correct. And everyone got it right for the second round. And for PM3, 81.8% identify as professional, and 18.2% identified as novice. Students actually struggling between novice and expert in this round. According to students' Likert scale answers, novice PM1 showed strength in promising retranslation, no typos, avoiding over templating. But a novice is bad at providing redelivery dates, renegotiate specification, and understanding the complaint. And GPT got 4.14 overall score, very good. And GPT is the best among the three at grammar and free of typos, and shows empathy, which is interesting, and also promising retranslation. But is worse among the three at conciseness and the justification of the initial translation. And expert is the best among the three at avoid over templating, but critically failed at renegotiate the specification. In summary, all three PMs showed significant weakness in renegotiate the specification, and only GPT provided a redelivery date. Exact date. The survey also included the 2 open-ended questions, which is question 16, asking about the perception of human likeness, and question 17 invited any additional comments. Similar to the first round, we did sentiment analysis on human likeness questions, and we can see still GPT again had the highest positive comments than novice and expert. For other comments, we get some interesting answers. For PM1, which is novice, we see like Maahi talked there, and this is saying his nuanced debate of French grammar showed domain expertise, polished, empathetic, and solution-oriented. Very high comments. And then PM2, which is GPT, got the comments like PM2 featuring impressive thoroughness, but reads generically authoritative. And PM3 got the comment like polite and error-free, but too skeletal to inspire client confidence, which is the expert get this statement. And that's all for my survey results.
Okay, thank you so much. So, any questions? A little bit scary, no, that ChatGPT gets the best human-like scores. Amazing. Can you use the microphone?
Maybe the client is expecting some different interaction than what the evaluators expect or not. Maybe you're more used to some direct conversation, and that's part of the reason.
Whether they have a different expectation of that communication, I have no clue. What would a student expect from communicating with a project manager? Maybe they have never done that. I don't know. And we didn't have such a question. Did we have such a question? Did we have a question? Did you expect something different? Okay, or Masaru, who's there? Brandon, maybe? I don't think we had such a question. Don't know. Yeah?
Can I just add on this topic, liking communication or not, also depends on the culture of who's communicating with whom. When you are a project manager, you don't communicate in the same way. If your customer is based in Japan or in Colombia, they expect a different level of formality in the communication. So liking a communication can also be affected by cultural preferences.
Yeah, so we had actually students from Ohio, that's in the United States. And then we had students from Japan, from Masaru's environment. And I think that's it basically, no? And then some students maybe also from New York area or so. So basically American and Japanese students. And I have no idea whether there's a significant difference in the answers between these two groups of students. I don't know. Masaru, I guess you didn't look into this, no? Or
no. 1/3 of my students are from the US and China.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have to say this. I've been formulating this. I think the big prize today, Masaru, I hope you're listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, goes to Masaru.
Yes.
Yeah. Why? Because of his extraordinary talent in tailoring GPT to actually get these kinds of scores. He's psyched out the graders that we had in mind. It's just amazing. I have a closing comment, but I really wanted to congratulate Masaru.
Thank you.
His intelligence, not GPT's intelligence, that he inserted into the system.
I think it's already past and we should stop here. I don't know. So maybe you have some closing words?
Yes. My closing remark. So far as I am aware, and since I devised the translation Turing test, if someone else had done it, I think they would have contacted me. So far as I'm aware, this is the first substantial translation Turing test that has been conducted anywhere in the world. It's a start. Now my question to you is, should we find another team and do another one, try to improve, learn from what we've done? Or should we say, oh, this was really a bad idea to even do a translation Turing test? What do you think? Should we go on? Yes, okay. Then I'd like to thank the whole team, especially Longwy.
Otherwise, no?
What's that?
If it was a one-shot too, we could thank them.
Yes. It was Longwy's idea. At the American Translators Association, do you remember when you approached me there in the exhibit hall in October 2024 in Portland, Oregon? I'm sure you remember that. That's when this all started. Yes, thank you. And thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Marasu. Thank you for working with us. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, lunchtime. Thank you.
I'm going to stand outside the door. Come back in.